Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and we're going to stand out again. As always, I don't use the standout videos for every boss because some of them are just plain dog shit, but the Dragons of Nightmare, my favorite boss so far on Mythic, my absolute favorite boss, and also the worst boss on Normal and Heroic, but once you move it up to Mythic, this fight becomes great in my mind, and my guild would probably disagree, or a lot of them would disagree, but we'll get into that shortly. What's so special about the Mythic Dragons of Nightmare? Even if your guild has moderate DPS, the chances are on Normal and Heroic, you're going to smash these bosses in the face and not really understand what the fuck is going on. In fact, this fight can be absolutely carried in Normal and Heroic by 2 or 3 people knowing what's going on and everyone else just shooting the dragon in the face, right? That's what's going to happen. So, once you get to Mythic, the first thing you're going to notice is that it has mechanics. And a lot of them. It actually does stuff. This fight genuinely does stuff. And what I really, really enjoy about this fight is that every single time you pull it, it's going to be different. This fight is all about adaptation. And depending on your raid style, that might be something you struggle with, but it's going to be a great learning experience nonetheless, and hopefully I can encourage you guys to be part of that learning process. Unless you melee, of course, in which case, go in the portal, shut the fuck up, and we'll see you at the end of the fight, right? What goes on? There are lots of raiders out there, and you might be one of them, who likes it when a raid fight is progressed in the form of working out who does what and assigning tasks out, and that's generally how it goes. And then as you progress further through the fight, you just learn the next part. So you might assign Billy to go and do this part of the fight, and Jimmy goes and does this part of the fight, and Tommy, well, he deals with that part of the fight. That's not going to work on the Emerald Dragons in Mythic. That's not going to work at all. What's actually going to happen is each and every single person is going to have to be ready at some point to pick up the reins of somebody who you would ideally like to deal with this. I would really like it if Jimmy dealt with this, but in the Dragons of Nightmare Mythic, it's going to be a case where Jimmy says to you, I can't handle this, and you need to be ready and raring to go in order to pick up that mantle and make the fight significantly easier and reduce raid stress throughout, okay? The first and biggest tip I can give anybody doing this fight is to be super aware of your surroundings. Not only because the range of which the dragons give out their stacking debuffs is vastly increased here, but we do have this situation where you might say something like, I want the warlocks whose epic class fantasy is to be shit on in every single fight and soak all the damage. You might want the warlocks to take the flowers, for example. The flowers must be stood in, they must be soaked. But the flowers are only one minor component of this fight. You combine that with something like that warlock got infection. That's going to double the amount of damage he's going to take, and that might be unhealable depending on your raid's abilities. And also there's going to be things flying from the sky which can one-shot you if you're combining something like infection and flower and things falling from the sky, and then you've got fear coming in, and all these kind of things are occurring. And you need to be really aware that just because our warlock was assigned to it, there's a reasonably high degree of chance that he's not going to be able to do it. And that might only happen 1 in every 4 tries. But that 1 in every 4 tries where your warlock's just not doing it, you need to be the guy who's ready to step in there. You also need to be super aware of people who might be picking up the mantle. The flowers is another great example. One spawns in melee. So your rogue or whatever who's not gone into the portals is like, I got this. But then the dragons move around a lot, don't they? Your tanks are going to have this huge amount of work to do in terms of traveling around and swapping them over, where your rogue is essentially becoming a redundant DPS by maintaining that role. And that's something that you, if you are a ranged or you're a healer, can look at and say, you go and do this, I'll replace you. Okay, so being hugely aware of what is going on around you and what is your position because of the debuffs is going to help you out immensely, especially if you are fully ready and raring to go with absorbing things, taking things, and making sure that just because you weren't assigned to it, that doesn't mean you're not going to do this. This is a team effort to get this fight down. You need to be doing it together. So the second, and probably, I say second, but this is easily the most important part of this fight. And it was something that we had a great learning experience on. Maybe if even people didn't realize it. And that is communication. There's a huge amount of communication needed on the Dragons of Nightmare Mythic. And you might be a guy who, I can give you our example. In our raid team, we have a significant amount of new players who joined this expansion. They moved up from Team 2, etc. We recruited some other guys. So there's some new guys. Now, when you join a new raid team, there's all kind of things that happen there. One, you were probably used to a different style of raiding than what we do. There's an extremely high chance that the raid style and the way it's done is very different. So if you had a raid style previously, which was shut the fuck up while we're raiding and let the raid leader speak, let the tanks speak, let the officers speak, or whatever fucking nonsense came from mistrusting your raiders or anything like that, where you were told to just be quiet and get on with it and just listen to instruction, that's going to get you unstuck on this fight. You need huge amounts of communication. But that communication, guys, needs to be extremely short, sweet, and to the point. And the reason for that is there's lots of communication that will happen every single try that you need to not interfere with. The tanks need to be communicating with their swapping. As if you've ever done this fight, or when you do reach this fight, what you'll find is things like dragons will land and may only be tanked for 7 or 8 seconds just to make sure the stacks are done properly before they're then being swapped across the room, across this vast space. And they need to be communicating that very, very well to ensure that they don't just cause a wipe by getting everybody stunned. So what I've got here is something really cool for you. What I've got is every recorded pull that we did on this boss. So I want you to look at the communication, or listen to the communication that takes place in the early pulls. And I've highlighted what was said that was actually important for the raid to know. Then we're going to look at the later pulls, which is near the kill, and look how much that developed and helped out everybody. All right, let's look.
I can take this one now.
Sam's remove melee.
Portal open.
Yeah.
I'll taunt it first.
This needs to die. Swapping.
Yeah,
Shade needs to die, guys.
There we go. If we move to a cleaner area now on the right.
Yeah, let's move.
Wipe it. Get pre-shot.
There's someone in it. I can't see
You
it.
can wrestle.
I'm in this flower
Right.
back
Got
on
the
ours.
breath.
Keep armor coat.
Right side's stack up now. Spirits.
You should probably.
Left side, I mean.
Left side spirit. We got a good spirit. There we go. Kill him.
I've had to step out of it. I'm gonna die.
I got it.
Shade you still with those horrors for a bit.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Can pick up the nuance at 3.
What you need to be doing is ensuring that you are communicating, and and more importantly than this, if you realize that somebody hasn't communicated who maybe should have, because you have been following step 1 on these tips and looking around the environment and see something like your warlock has infection, you need to be going, Warlock, can you take it? That's it. That's the short and sweet. That's all you need to know is, Warlock, can you take it? And if he replies no, or yes, I've got a cooldown, like no, yes, fine, then you understand it. One of the biggest things that actually led to frustration and wiping during our progress on this fight, and yes, we did spend a little too long on this fight, I would say, as people got used to the new raid style, but God, it was a fast forward through it, was people doing things but not communicating that they've done it. The flowers are, again, a simple example of this. So a flower spawns, and you might say something like, I'll take it because it's in a good position for me, right? It's in a good position for me. I've got some cooldowns to be able to absorb anything. I'm absolutely fine and dandy. And you get there and there's somebody in it. There's somebody already there. Now, the fight is actually so busy and clustered that you might not even notice that. And suddenly you've got 2 of you in there. But a big frustration there is that person not saying they were dealing with this mechanic. Yeah? This is a enormous issue, and it will really start to slow you down everywhere. Is if you move to a flower or you move to some position where you need to do something and there's a guy already doing it but he didn't say so. It might seem minor to you, you've not done this fight, but once you have all the other elements of this fight working together, this is a real big problem. And it was one of the things that people were shouted at the most is, what you're doing is fine. Doing what you're doing is absolutely fine. Everybody's happy that you have the awareness to go and deal with this mechanic and that you feel confident in doing it. fucking tell somebody. So you don't have multiple people all silently trying to deal with a mechanic without communicating it. So you can imagine a raid that has relatively little communication here. You might have 2 or 3 people running to this flower that's already got 1 person in it, and those 2 or 3 people could have been doing anything else that actually contributes to this encounter. And standing out here is going to be very quick, very on point communication. I got this. Flower spawn, I got this. Flower spawn, can't take it. Have infection. Warlock's saying that early, or whoever your designated soakers are. Have infection, can't take the next one. Somebody else going, I'll do it. Yeah? That's 2 or 3 lines of dialogue that happens over the span of 5 seconds. Have infection, can't do it. I'll deal with it. Done. Dusted. This will make your progress on this fight so much fucking quicker, guys. I can't even express to you how much easier this fight becomes when everybody's clear on what's going on. As this fight progresses, it becomes more and more chaotic towards the end, when we have things like shades and spirits and all these kind of things that need to be dealt with, as the melee are now freed up after dealing with their portals. And communication and positioning, the 2 things I've pointed out here, are going to be crucial to maintaining that element of control that is needed throughout this fight. This is a control fight, but it is going to educate you and educate your raid overall that 1, you can't just rely on things being assigned out to other people. Then you need to grow and adapt with the fight as it morphs and changes and just continues to undulate throughout all of its pulls. Because if you're waiting for that pull where everything goes just right for you, you're probably going to spend the next 3 weeks here wiping on this, and nobody wants that to happen. As great as this fight is, you don't want to stare at a dragon arsehole for 3 weeks, right? Especially when we've got a wonderful eyeball waiting for us. Stand out on this fight. Communicate. Yeah? Communicate fast. Communicate quickly. Don't override what all the passive communication that is already taking place. But good God, communicate. I'll have a final little tidbit of information here that led to many wipes. In my opinion, as much as my guild might hate me for this, is obviously you split the raid into 2 sides. What we noticed is that our left side had great communication. Our right side didn't have great communication. Almost silent throughout many of our pulls. And then we noticed that lots of times those guys kind of fell apart or were getting frustrated. Suddenly you'd have a guy saying, why aren't you standing in this blur? Because you're near it. And no communication coming backwards and forwards from those people. We definitely noticed a significant portion of problems coming from sides that didn't communicate, and encouraging them and saying, you guys need to talk. You need to be communicating here. But you can hear the amount of conversation that's going on our side, yeah? And we're not seeing it on your side, and we're seeing problems there. Why is that happening? Why are you guys not trying to coordinate yourselves? Why are you struggling? Why are you making this harder for yourself? This fight is all about being able to adapt quickly. So don't run into that situation. Tell you guys they need to be short and to the point. If someone starts going, oh, well, I've got infection, so I'm not going to be able to take this one. Is there anybody out there? That's too much. Shut the fuck up. Don't say that. Just say, got infection, can't take the next one. Yeah? I have ice block for this. I have dispersion for this. I have deterrence for this. I'll handle it. All these things are going to make you kill this so much faster. But have fun, because this fight is really cool. All right, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.